Tonight, breaking news, the tornado threat taking aim at the south. Dangerous thunderstorms tearing through North Carolina, uprooting trees and bringing down power lines. A possible tornado sighted tonight in Raleigh. Reports of people trapped in their homes. At least 17 million people still on alert. The latest track moments away. Also breaking, defending Taiwan. The president vowing the U.S. will respond with military force if China invades Taiwan. Aides immediately attempting to downplay the remarks, insisting there has not been a change in policy. How China is already responding to the tough talk. Murder on the subway, the NYPD releasing new surveillance images of a man wanted for shooting a subway rider in broad daylight. Police say the two had no interaction before the fatal attack. The victim on his way to Sunday brunch when he was killed. The urgent manhunt still underway. Peanut butter warning, the major brand and the massive recall due to a possible salmonella contamination. Dozens of types being pulled off shelves. Which jars you should toss to keep your family safe. Plus, love triangle murder? U.S. Marshals joining the desperate search for a killer after an elite cyclist was shot dead in Texas. The bombshell tip police just received, and why a fellow biker who had dated the victim's boyfriend is now a primary suspect. Plus, raging bull, the terrifying moment a bull bucked its rider and jumped into the stands. How authorities were able to finally wrangle the wild animal. Top story starts right now. And good evening. As we come on tonight, tornado watches popping up all across the south with millions bracing for a night of severe weather. A possible tornado sighted near Raleigh. Heavy winds uprooting trees, sending power lines crashing to the ground. Our affiliate reporting people were trapped in their homes in the moments after that storm. Heavy rains creating treacherous conditions for drivers. Police urging people to stay off those flooded roads. That system not done yet, so let's get right to meteorologist Bill Cairns. He joins us live tonight on Top Story. So, Bill, what are we looking at right now?
Oh, we were watching in the last couple hours the Raleigh-Durham area, of course. At a peak, we had about 30,000 people without power. It looks like at this point, straight-line winds are more the culprit than tornado, but they'll investigate that as we go throughout the day tonight and also during the day tomorrow. All these blue dots on here are damaging wind reports. These thunderstorms were in the upstate portion of South Carolina, just to the north and to the west of Columbia. Then from Charlotte to Raleigh, a line of storms produced that damage, and those are the storms that went through the Raleigh-Durham area with the flash flood warning in addition to that. So what do we have left to watch this evening? Well, we still have our thunderstorm watch for areas from Savannah to Charleston. These line of very strong storms are sweeping towards the coast. We could see winds in excess of 50 to 60 miles per hour. And we have our tornado watch in upstate portions of South Carolina from Greenville southwards, almost down to Augusta, Georgia. And we do have our friends in Texas with a new area of concern. This is a severe thunderstorm watch. Large hail is possible from Lubbock to Amarillo. And with this next storm that's now starting in Texas, we're going to get some heavy rain out of this. 4 million people are in flash flood watches, including Amarillo to Wichita to Topeka, areas from Shreveport, Texarkana, Corsicana, Texas. This is not just tonight, but this is all day tomorrow also. And this is going to be a huge rainstorm for this area. We want that in Texas. We have gotten into exceptional drought conditions in a lot of Texas, so we like this in central Texas. But whenever you get this much rain in a short period of time, even if you have drought conditions, you can get flash flooding. So that's what we're going to be watching tonight and into tomorrow. Again, all eyes will be on the Carolinas to see how much damage is reported from these storms this evening.
Along with that flooding you're pointing out right there. All right, Bill, we appreciate that. We're also following another breaking headline tonight from President Biden's trip to Asia. The president appearing to change course after decades of the one China policy, saying the U.S. would defend Taiwan if China invaded. NBC News White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell is traveling with the president tonight.
Today, with just one word, President Biden injected new unpredictability in the tense relationship with China. A warning, Beijing must not invade Taiwan. The president was asked if he would intervene militarily.
Yes. That's the commitment we made.
The president's simple yes appears to defy long-standing policy of strategic ambiguity. Current U.S. policy does not require military intervention, but says the U.S. would give Taiwan resources to defend itself. Today, Taiwan expressed gratitude, while China said the U.S. should refrain from wrong signals. Mr. Biden has made similar comments before, but this time in Asia, while connecting with leaders in the region. Within minutes, aides sent a statement to clarify the president did not alter policy. And later, the Secretary of Defense made the same point.
Our policy has not changed.
But what has changed is that President Biden argues that China must see Russia will pay a long-term price for invading Ukraine. Today's comment suggested the U.S. could go further to defend Taiwan than it has Ukraine.
Kelly O'Donnell joins us now from Tokyo. Kelly, take us inside the damage control that happened after the president's comments.
Well, at first, there are those who react to what the president said and are worried about what will the ripple effects be. So you had the White House putting out a statement pointing to where the president said, and he did go into great detail saying the U.S. was not changing its policy and that it would adhere to all of the agreements it had previously made. And yet we know what the world hears is the president saying, yes, he would intervene militarily. They also know that other countries would react as well. So at the Pentagon, we saw how the defense secretary came out and he was asked about this. So there was a coordinated response to try to reinforce that U.S. policy is no different, that there would be an opportunity to protect Taiwan, but without giving too many specifics now. However, the president says the words of a president matter. And so when he speaks in this way, which he has done before, he is sending a signal. So aides and other officials may be uncomfortable when the president says something that can rattle some diplomatic waves. But we have to go back to what the president's own words are. He is saying in the context of a world in which Russia invaded Ukraine that China should be put on notice. He didn't go into the specifics of exactly how he would intervene, but he tried to send a signal, and boy, the repercussions were certainly heard. And Tommy did it while in Asia and meeting with other Asian leaders. And certainly China has overshadowed this trip in terms of its power, influence, and economics in so many ways. And so that one word was heard quite loudly here in Tokyo. Tom?
And all over the world. All right, Kelly O'Donnell for us tonight. Kelly, we thank you for that. For more on the significance of President Biden's comments, I want to bring in Dr. Victor Cha. He's a senior vice president at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and the former director of Asian Affairs in the National Security Council during the Bush administration. Dr. Cha, thank you for joining Top Story tonight. Explain what happened here. It's a delicate balance, and it appears the president upset that balance.
Yeah, I certainly think he did with this statement, but frankly, I think he misspoke. I agree that I don't think it's a change in policy. Strategic ambiguity to maintain peace and stability across the Taiwan Straits has been the U.S. policy for a while, and it's for a reason. It's to practice dual restraint with regard to China, saying, don't think of attacking Taiwan because you don't know what we'll do. But it was also to Taiwan to say, don't assert or declare independence because you don't know what we'll do. So did
the U.S. essentially just show its hand then? What happens tomorrow if China invades Taiwan?
So I think that what is interesting about Biden's statement is it expresses his sentiment. So if the Chinese were to attack Taiwan tomorrow, the question for Biden wouldn't be whether the United States should defend Taiwan, but for him, it would be, we will defend Taiwan. And then the question becomes how we do that. What are the means that we use to do that? So I think he's expressing his personal sentiment, which is still in support of a policy of strategic ambiguity, but he's saying this is the way he feels about it, and it wouldn't be a tough decision for him to make about whether he should take action.
Do you think President Biden's statements today will test China's patience and potentially escalate an already tense situation?
Well, I mean, it's certainly possible. The problem with strategic clarity, which is how you might contextualize what the president said today, is that might actually make the situation worse by giving the Chinese the view that they need to act quickly. They need to work through the window of opportunity now as opposed to later if the United States is saying that it's going to be militarily intervening and try to take advantage of the fact that we're distracted elsewhere. So I think it does have that potential effect. But like I said, I think all of the walking back by the administration is a sign to the Chinese that they should not think of this as something that is changing the situation or destabilizing the Taiwan Strait.
Yeah, the White House clearly playing cleanup there. Dr. Victor Cha for us tonight here on Top Story. Dr. Cha, we thank you for your analysis. We want to come back here at home and talk about the latest on that formula crisis and potential good news for parents. More formula arriving to the U.S. from Europe as the Biden administration works on more ways to get the product into the hands of families in need. Jolene Kent has more.
When the first emergency aircraft for Operation Fly Formula landed, it delivered a sign of hope alongside growing nationwide panic.
Everything is empty. I don't know about y'all,
but this is scary.
Aboard the C-17, more than 70,000 pounds of hypoallergenic formula, enough for 9,000 babies and 18,000 toddlers with cow's milk allergies. But just for 1 week, a drop in the bucket. The formula will be sent out to families over the next 2 weeks through hospitals and pharmacies.
Hi.
In New Jersey, Isabella Gagliardi has been facing the shortage since January, before her son Thomas was even born.
It was definitely a lot of relief where I was like, okay, something is happening here. But I think it was still really frustrating because we've been talking about this for a really long time.
Families are demanding more answers from the White House. Today, the vice president saying,
our administration is working around the clock to ensure that there is enough safe baby formula available for all who need it.
The White House also announcing that 2 major manufacturers have received Defense Production Act approval to purchase expedited ingredients and supplies to ramp up production. One of the manufacturers, Reckitt, which owns Mead Johnson, predicting to NBC News it will be producing 40% more formula in June. But supply chain experts say the Defense Production Act can only help so much.
How much of a difference can this make in getting formula on shelves soon?
It really won't make too much of a difference. The problem is that the formula manufacturers don't have that extra capacity. So if a factory goes down and then you go to another factory and say, hey, look, we want more formula, they're not going to be able to produce as much as you're going to need.
For now, Isabella is relying on her family and her mom group to get what her son needs.
We take pictures of the formula shelves whenever we're there so other moms can see, like, Walmart in, wherever has this in stock. If you need it, you just shoot on over. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of fallen on the shoulders of mothers who've already had to do so much.
The big question here is, when are parents going to see more formula on store shelves? Here's what we know so far. The second formula plane carrying hypoallergenic formula arrives on Wednesday in Virginia, and that is going to head to Pennsylvania. We also know that so far there's been no timeline change for the closed Abbott facility in Michigan. That plant is supposed to reopen within 7 days. If it does, that formula would hit store shelves, according to the company, by mid-July. But that is at the earliest. Tom?
Can't come soon enough. All right, Jo Ling Kent for us tonight. Joe, we thank you for that. Now to top stories, power and politics. With the midterms looming less than 6 months away, the baby formula shortage we just told you about, just one of the many crises facing the White House right now. And chances are looking increasingly bleak for Democrats as President Biden is expected to ramp up travel and fundraising. Here's Kristen Welker.
Tonight, with the midterm election season heating up, tensions are mounting inside the Democratic Party and White House, with a growing cascade of crises, including the president's handling of border policy, soaring inflation, and fears of a recession.
We have got to have the guts to go forward with an agenda that shows the American people what we're trying to do.
This is really about the collapse in support among young people, among the Democratic base, feeling like they are not, that they worked overtime to get this president elected, and they aren't necessarily being seen.
According to a recent NBC News poll, 75% of adults believe the country is headed in the wrong direction, and many place the blame squarely on the president and his party. Now, some Democrats are bracing for big midterm losses, like they suffered under former President Obama, 2 years after he was elected.
I'm not recommending for every future president that they take a shellacking like I did last night.
We pressed former Biden White House official Cedric Richmond.
Will Democrats get shellacked in the fall?
I don't think Democrats are getting shellacked in the fall. Let's just start there.
2 top Biden aides tell NBC News, moving forward, the president will double down on his attempts to draw a sharp contrast with Republicans, including on social flashpoints like abortion. And he will continue to try to paint some in the GOP as ultra-MAGA, a term Democrats developed with focus groups over 6 months.
The great MAGA king. MAGA Republicans. The ultra-MAGA Republicans.
But some Democrats worry that swipe is failing to resonate, with some Republicans embracing it.
I am ultra-MAGA. I'm proud of it. Does the president need to retool his message?
No, not at all. I think that is the clearest contrast that we can make. And I think the president is doing a good job. They are ultra-MAGA. They are extremists.
All right, Kristen Welker joins us now from the White House North Lawn. Kristen, I want to go back there to some of the things you pointed out in your story about the strategy for the Democrats heading into the midterms and the president specifically calling former President Trump the MAGA king. It sort of had this ring of 2020 to it. And then, of course, I know you're familiar with this Axios poll that came out. They put together this bar graph that shows more people interacted on social media with articles about the Depp trial than Joe Biden and abortion. And as you mentioned, the Democrats want to seize on sort of the flashpoint that's happening with abortion right now. How do Democrats feel about these strategies right now?
Well, Democrats believe that they have to start singing from the same songbook. They believe that some of these candidates don't have a unified message talking about what the administration sees as the bright spots of the economy, the low unemployment rate, for example, talking about cultural issues like abortion, as you just mentioned. The big question, how much will we see the president on the campaign trail? Well, Biden aides say they will be strategic about where the president campaigns heading up into the fall. But with his low approval rating, some Democrats, Tom, may say thanks, but no thanks. We'll have to see.
Kristen Welker for us tonight. Kristen, we thank you for that. We're also following new developments on that monkeypox outbreak. The Biden administration now laying out its response as the virus spreads in ways we haven't seen before. But now some experts believe they have an idea on how this puzzling outbreak started. Here's Stephen Romo.
Tonight, a leading theory on what started this latest monkeypox outbreak and a steadily growing number of cases worldwide. The former head of the WHO's Emergencies Department, Dr. David Heyman, saying sexual contact at two raves, one in Spain and another in Belgium, likely amplified the initial spread in communities of gay and bisexual men.
What do you think about that theory? Is that plausible?
When you look at the way that this is spreading through populations of men who have sex with men, you wonder, were there certain events that were pivotal in the virus getting access to that population?
It's worth noting that monkeypox normally doesn't spread through sexual contact.
When people have sexual contact with each other, it's an intimate, close environment where respiratory secretions, skin-to-skin contact occur, and the virus can exploit those types of situations and transmit.
Now, at least 15 countries have confirmed monkeypox cases. With the CDC reporting today, the U.S. has one confirmed case in Massachusetts and 4 suspected cases in New York, Florida, and Utah. President Biden raising the alarm over the weekend.
It is something that everybody should be concerned about.
And later softening his position.
I just don't think it rises to the level of the kind of concern that existed with COVID-19 and the smallpox vaccine works for it.
Leading the administration to provide context on the president's comments.
The president is really ensuring we stay vigilant.
Adding that the risk to the general public is low.
It's not a new disease. It's spreading in new ways, in new places, and quite suddenly. But we have vaccines and we have treatments.
In an attempt to curb the spread, the CDC is trying to educate the LGBTQIA community on monkeypox.
I don't think at the present time there is sufficient evidence of spread occurring so rapidly that we want to shut down any events or recommend that things be postponed.
The CDC also emphasizing most patients recover on their own in 2 to 4 weeks.
All right, Stephen Romo joins us now live here on set. So, Stephen, talk to me about the smallpox vaccine and monkeypox. Will it help people who have that vaccine?
Yeah, that's a question a lot of people have had. They belong to the same family of viruses. And we know in the past, in the last U.S. outbreak in 2003, they did something called ring vaccination. They used smallpox vaccine for close contacts of people who had monkeypox. At the time, that was linked to some imported pets from Africa, that outbreak was. And it seemed to work. It seemed to stop the spread of monkeypox back then. We do know this time around, the U.S. is getting ready to release some smallpox vaccine for people who have been exposed to patients who have been confirmed to have monkeypox right now. But the World Health Organization is not recommending widespread vaccinations for people who believe they could be exposed to it or people who just be in fear of it right now.
All right, Stephen Romo for us tonight. Stephen, thank you for that. We want to turn out to another contentious day in the courtroom in Johnny Depp's defamation trial against Amber Heard. A slew of expert testimonies on tap in the final week of the trial. NBC's Maggie Vespa has those details.
Tonight, the home stretch of Hollywood's harrowing off-screen drama.
They're very sweet.
The $50 million defamation trial between A-list exes Johnny Depp and Amber Heard entering its final week, with Depp potentially due back on the stand any day now. Meantime, tensions mounting in court.
If the door's pushed and the hinge closes about the fingers.
I understand that. But my question is,
I think it's important that they understand that.
This is the time for me to ask you questions.
Heard's lawyers calling an orthopedic surgeon to undermine Depp's graphic story about his severed finger. The actor had testified Heard caused the injury by throwing a vodka bottle at him during a 2015 trip to Australia. Heard countered, saying Depp could have injured himself when he smashed a wall-mounted phone.
If something had come from the top, that there would be an immediate impact to the fingernail bed?
That's correct.
Cut to cross-examination.
But you weren't in Australia with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, correct?
I was not in Australia, no.
And so therefore you have no personal knowledge as to how that injury was sustained.
Correct.
Next, a psychiatrist called by Heard's team to weigh in on the relationship.
Mr. Depp has behaviors that are consistent with both someone who has a substance use disorder as well as consistent behaviors for someone who's a perpetrator of intimate partner violence.
Depp's team drilling down, noting Dr. David Spiegel never personally examined Depp.
You don't know whether he was at the time on drugs and alcohol, but you're going to rely on it in your testimony to say that he's cognitively impaired.
Which is what we do in clinical medicine, sir.
Depp is suing his ex-wife for defamation after she wrote a 2018 op-ed in the Washington Post describing herself as a public figure representing domestic abuse. The actor claims he never abused Heard and said the op-ed, which never directly mentioned Depp, derailed his career, costing him millions. But Heard's expert witness claims Depp's reputation was suffering before the op-ed due to his own behavioral issues on and off set.
Based on your analysis, what if any impact did Ms. Heard's op-ed have on whether Mr. Depp could claim a loss for Pirate 6? Zero.
Heard also countersuing Depp for $100 million. Her lawyers were originally expected to call Depp back to the stand today, but now sources close to Heard telling NBC News, quote, calling Depp back to the stand would be as relevant to us as a bicycle to a fish. Everything Depp has testified up to this point has been irrelevant to the heart of the case. But now Depp's team could call him in rebuttal over the next few days, according to representatives for Depp.
It gives Johnny Depp, who is obviously a skilled communicator, the ability to kind of reemphasize his themes, his points, his strategy.
Depp's team may also call Kate Moss, former supermodel and ex-girlfriend of Depp.
All right, Maggie Vespa joins us now live from Los Angeles. Maggie, I know you have some new reporting on the public reaction to some of the testimony in this trial and what's actually happening.
Yeah, Tom, exactly. During that psychiatrist testimony, which, as you saw, was largely critical of Depp, people started what's known as review bombing his practice, giving it more than 400 one-star reviews just today to kind of tank his rating. And a lot of people mentioned the trial specifically in their reviews. Google, it appears, saw this happening and removed the bad reviews, leaving kind of the older, legitimate ones. But it's just more proof that, as you said, in the court of public opinion, Depp has fared very well. Tom.
Review bombing. All right. Maggie Vespa for us tonight. Maggie, we thank you for that. For more on this trial in its final days, I want to bring in one of our top story legal analysts, attorney Angela Senadella. So, Angela, what do you make of the Heard team not bringing Johnny Depp back onto the stand?
So there's only one reason why the Heard team would have brought Johnny Depp on the stand, and that's if they could have caught him in some sort of a gotcha moment, like a big lie on the stand that would have made a dramatic effect and impacted the jury. However, they likely analyzed the risk of that, saw how likable he's been, saw how he's been able to turn things into jokes and just win over the jury. So then they decided, you know what, it's too risky.
Yeah, it's almost strange. And we've talked about this before because in the court of public opinion, it seems like Johnny Depp is winning this case. You've told me before there's been major pieces of evidence and major moments where it shows Amber Heard's legal team is not doing a horrible job and Johnny Depp may not win this case.
Absolutely. I don't think that Johnny Depp will win this case. First of all, it's a defamation lawsuit, and that burden of proof is entirely on him to systematically disprove every single one of her allegations. At this point, we're up to a dozen or so allegations, and he doesn't even remember half of them because of the alleged substance abuse as well. So as a result, I think it's going to be a very hard case for him to win.
Talk to me about this Kate Moss issue and why some members of his legal team you think were celebrated or happy when when Kate Moss was mentioned. She's now going to testify.
It's fascinating. So originally, Kate Moss was totally irrelevant to the case, and that's because in a domestic violence case, judges hate to bring a parade of ex-partners just to prove that this person didn't abuse someone in the past. That's not super relevant to whether or not they abused the person on the stand today. And so as a result, she was not relevant. But Amber herself made Kate Moss relevant by bringing her up in her own testimony. She brought up the rumor that Kate Moss had maybe been thrown down the stairs. As a result, it's up to Johnny's team to be able to now call her as a witness to defend him and to defend her.
And they think that she will.
Yes, they think that she will. I still don't think it's relevant, though. 20 years ago, they dated.
Okay. All right, Angela Senadella for us tonight. Angela, we thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, the urgent manhunt in New York City. Police releasing new images of the suspect wanted for fatally shooting a man at random on a subway train, why the victim's family is now blaming city officials. Plus, the search for a missing woman accused of killing a professional cyclist. Were the suspect and victim involved in a love triangle? And the shocking moment a rodeo bull jumped into the stands. What happened next? Stay with us. Top story. Just getting started on this Monday. Back now with the search for a killer. A manhunt is underway in New York City tonight after a suspect shot at a man at point-blank range on the subway, killing him. The victim heading to brunch on Sunday when he was murdered. And authorities say it appears to be a random act of violence. Emily Aketa has the latest.
Tonight, an urgent manhunt in New York City for this suspect who police say randomly shot and killed a subway rider. An unprovoked attack. Witnesses were calling the complete chaos on board.
Terror, absolute terror. Everybody immediately reacted and started dispersing to the very ends of the cars.
Tonight, the victim's family heartbroken. 48-year-old Daniel Enriquez was the son of Mexican immigrants, an NYU grad who worked at Goldman Sachs and was headed to Sunday brunch.
And I'm gonna grieve forever. Daniel was my best friend. Even when we fought, I loved him dearly. My heart, it will never be the same.
The senseless shooting amid a rise in crime, up 40% in New York City. Transit crime surging over 60%. Just weeks ago, police responded to the worst subway attack in decades. And a spike in violence nationwide, too. More than a dozen major cities reaching a grim milestone last year, setting all-time highs for murder. On Friday, 2 people were killed in a mass shooting near Chicago's Magnificent Mile.
It's frightening. It's scary sometimes.
Well, back in New York tonight, Daniel Enriquez's sister demanding action in a city she says is not safe.
That man may not have known who Daniel Enriquez was, but I hope that those in power will remember Daniel Enriquez, that he didn't suffer and live through so much to die like that.
You just feel for this man's family. Emily Aketa joins us now. Emily, you know, the mayor of New York City ran on a platform that he would clean up New York City, that they would attack crime. What are New York City officials doing about this case?
Tom, this has been a point of concern for so many people. A lot of attention pouring into subway safety. As you mentioned, Mayor Eric Adams addressing the Sunday shooting today, saying that he is hoping to continue to build out police officers' presence within subway stations, but also on the trains themselves. The other thing he wants to incorporate is more advanced technology, such as metal detectors. Tom?
All right, Emily Aketa for us. Emily, thank you. Moving to a shocking killing in Austin, Texas this time. Police are searching for a missing murder suspect who they say killed an elite cyclist after she became romantically involved with her boyfriend. NBC's Morgan Chesky has more.
Tonight, U.S. Marshals leading a coast-to-coast search for a murder suspect who hasn't been seen in more than a week. 35-year-old Caitlin Armstrong is accused of fatally shooting professional cyclist Anna Mariah Wilson. Police say on May 11th, officers found the 25-year-old's body at this Austin home with multiple gunshot wounds.
EMS shortly after arrived on scene, provided life-saving measures, but victim did succumb to her wounds.
In an affidavit obtained by our NBC affiliate KXAN, police say the victim, Wilson, had met with the suspect's current boyfriend, Colin Strickland, the night she was killed. Wilson and Strickland, both pro cyclists, who Strickland said briefly dated last fall, went swimming into dinner before Strickland dropped Wilson off at the home where she was later found dead. Detectives say 1 minute after Wilson arrived, security footage shows an SUV similar to Caitlin Armstrong's appearing to pull up outside. When officers confronted Armstrong with video evidence, she provided no explanation and continued to remain very still and guarded. Police later told her she was free to go. In a statement, Wilson's family says they are devastated by the loss of our beautiful daughter and sister.
I don't think anyone would have anything bad to say about her.
As police enlist the help of the U.S. Marshals to assist with finding Wilson's suspected killer, investigators say an anonymous tipster they call credible told them Armstrong discovered Strickland, her boyfriend, was having a romantic relationship with Wilson. The tipster telling police Armstrong became furious and was shaking with anger and wanted to kill her. Wilson's family says at the time of her death, she was not in a romantic relationship with anyone.
It is all Mariah Wilson-ish.
Known best as Mo, Wilson had been a rising talent in the gravel cycling circuit, a combination of mountain and road biking.
I really put a really hard effort in at the end.
Now, as investigators piece together what may have led to Wilson's death, the search is intensifying for the missing suspected murderer.
All right, Morgan Chesky joins us now from Austin. So, first of all, do we have any idea what the update is on the manhunt here? And also, why did police let her go if they were questioning her?
Yeah, Tom, very good question. No update on the manhunt as of right now. Authorities are staying very tight-lipped on their ongoing search for Armstrong. As for why she was released, it comes down to the warrant that they initially brought her into custody with was for a misdemeanor. Upon closer examination, officers said that it was not valid. So even though they were asking her questions about this murder, Tom, eventually they had to tell Armstrong she was free to go if she wanted to, and she absolutely did. Tom?
Morgan Chesky for us tonight. Morgan, we thank you. When we come back, the attempted smash and grab robbery caught on camera, the dramatic confrontation unfolding at a jewelry store in California. Take a look at that. The employees who step in and took matters into their own hands. Stay with us. All right, we are back now with Top Stories newsfeed. We begin with a frightening moment at a rodeo in Northern California. Take a look at this. Cell phone video shows the moment a bull jumped into the stands at a rodeo in Redding. The animal then ran out and into a parking area. At least 5 people were hurt, but they are all expected to be okay. The bull was later captured and taken back to its ranch. Okay, also in California, have you seen this video? A jewelry store was robbed. The employees decided to take on all the crooks and try to jump in there. Surveillance video shows one of the robbers smashing a display case at the store in Huntington Beach. The employees coming from behind the counter and then began punching and kicking the robbers, one even throwing a high chair. It's not clear how much merchandise the thieves took off with. A consumer alert, several Jif peanut butter products have been recalled over salmonella concerns. The various types of peanut butter made in a Kentucky facility have now been linked to salmonella outbreak in at least 12 states. More than a dozen people have been sickened, including at least 2 hospitalizations. We'll have much more information on the affected products on NBCnews.com. And a relic of the past, New York City has officially removed its last public payphone. The payphone in Times Square was removed by a crane today. The city began removing the remaining 6,000 booths back in 2015. All right. Next tonight, we want to turn to an explosive new report involving sexual abuse within the country's largest Protestant denomination. Leaders of the Southern Baptist Convention found to have mishandled allegations for over 2 decades. NBC's Ann Thompson has more.
This is the reckoning Hannah Kate Williams wanted when she and others asked the Southern Baptist Convention for a third-party investigation of sexual abuse.
Do you feel vindicated by the report?
In a lot of ways, yes.
She is suing the SBC for failing to take action against her father, who she says sexually abused her starting at age 8 as he studied to become a pastor.
I was met with, well, you're an enemy of God. It was threats, harassments. I had to move from my home.
The lengthy report details how survivors like Williams encountered resistance, stonewalling, and even outright hostility from some in SBC leadership starting in 2000. One leader claiming it is a satanic scheme to completely distract us from evangelism. Yet investigators found one staffer compiled a secret list of accused abusers with hundreds of names.
What does this do to the reputation of Southern Baptists?
You know, for a group that talks a lot about sexual morality, talks a lot about men protecting women and children, I think that this is obviously a very bad look, and it is clear hypocrisy.
SBC President Ed Litton says Southern Baptists must resolve to change our culture and implement desperately needed reforms. The report recommends creating and maintaining an offender information system, providing a resource toolbox with protocols and training, and making a sincere apology to survivors. Healing won't come easy. Popular evangelist Beth Moore, who left the SBC last year, today tweeting, "You have betrayed your women. It's too late to make it right with me. It's not too late to make it right with them."
All right, Ann joins us now on set. And Ann, one of the lines in your story really stood out to me. A secret list of accused abusers, 703 names. You covered the Catholic Church scandal, and this reminds us so much of that. You had these adults, these men of quote-unquote men of God. These families put their faith in them, and now they were abused.
You know, it really is stunning when you read through it, Tom. It is like a replay of what we saw happen in the Catholic Church, but this time it's the Southern Baptist Convention. Pastors who were accused of being abusive were moved around. Survivors were not listened to. Survivors were vilified. In fact, I talked to one survivor today who said she actually had death threats. She had to move. It was so extraordinary because she was saying, look, these men of God, these people we put our faith in, were doing terrible things, and you aren't doing anything about it. And on that list, 400 of those accused abusers were thought to be associated with the Southern Baptist Convention.
Okay, and we thank you for that report. Overseas now to the war in Ukraine and Russia's desperate attempt to take to the east. The military gaining some ground in the Donbass region as it carries out a brutal new phase of the conflict. NBC's Richard Engel again for us.
Out in Ukraine's far east, Russia's advance is gaining ground in a slow, destructive assault on the Donbass. Nothing seems to be off limits. Ukraine saying Russia just bombed this music school. Russia controls areas on 3 sides of the Donbass, a coal mining heartland, and is closing in on territory still held by Ukraine. At the center is Kramatorsk, where the main trauma hospital is receiving wounded, mostly from Russian artillery. Vera, 95 years old, was in her bedroom.
What happened to you?
It was very quiet, and suddenly there was an explosion. I don't understand how I stayed alive, she says. But reaching areas around Kramatorsk to evacuate refugees and the wounded is increasingly a challenge.
This is as far as we've been able to get for now. Ukrainian security forces won't let us advance further down that road. And if you listen, you can hear why. There's an intense artillery battle underway between Ukrainian forces and Russian troops. And it's been going on like this for several hours.
Amid the exchanges of fire, 2 Russian jets dropping flares for defense scream by at low altitude. Russia seems determined to take the east, even if it has to destroy it. Russia's first convicted war criminal, a young soldier, was today handed a life sentence for killing a 62-year-old unarmed civilian.
Tom, there are new indications of at least some internal resistance to President Putin's war. A top Russian diplomat in Switzerland resigned, saying he's never been so ashamed of his country's actions. Tom?
Richard Engel. Richard, we thank you. Now to top stories, Global Watch, and the deadly ferry fire in the Philippines. New video shows the high-speed passenger ferry engulfed in flames. Passengers in the water frantically swimming for safety. Officials say the ship caught fire just before reaching the port. At least 7 people have been killed and several more still missing. 120 other passengers were rescued. No word yet on the cause. And dozens of people remain trapped after a building collapsed in Iran. New aerial footage shows the damage after the 10-story building came crashing down. Look at that. At least 5 people are confirmed dead, but teams of rescuers and dogs are combing through the rubble for at least 80 missing people. The cause is still under investigation, but Iranian state TV is reporting the building's owner and contractor have been arrested. And female news presenters in Afghanistan are now required to cover their face on air. Female news anchors across the country, you see it here, wearing face coverings. Yesterday, after a new order by the Taliban that went into effect, causing all of that. Many journalists in the country are speaking out about the decision, and even some male anchors covering their faces to support their female colleagues. Okay, time now for the Americas, and tonight we are in Tapachula, Mexico, where many migrants are falling prey to misinformation spreading on social media. At times, messages falsely claiming the U.S. border is now open, pushing families to make the dangerous journey north. NBC's Guad Venegas is at the Guatemala-Mexico border with more.
In the southern Mexican city of Tapachula, along the Mexico-Guatemala border, there's a battle between truth and misinformation.
¿Han escuchado del título 42?
In a migrant community, often blinded by hope and desperation. Noletzis is sleeping at Jesus el Buen Pastor shelter with her young daughter and her husband. She pulls out her phone and shows us updates that she's been following since leaving Venezuela.
She's saying that they just crossed the river. This is the kind of stuff that they see, and a lot of migrants are thinking, okay, well, if they're crossing, maybe I can go and I cross myself.
Noletzis is one of 1,200 migrants at this shelter, where every spot is taken, many of them by children. Outside, dozens more camp out in the blistering heat. Their despair soon turns into intrigue as aid workers begin handing out papers explaining the legal process of border crossings.
So Josue is doing an information session right here, very informal. People walked up and started listening to him. He's holding some sheets of paper. Those sheets have a diagram that explains what would happen if they're detained by American authorities once they reach the U.S.-Mexico border.
Organizations like the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights now targeting misinformation that often comes by word of mouth or online. Migrants tapping into social media groups to coordinate travel plans and head north. Like this post asking who wants to sign up to create a caravan from Nicaragua to the U.S.
Do you think that the large amount of misinformation that is spread among migrants is causing more migrants to go to the U.S. border right now?
Yes, I do think that it has definitely an impact in moments.
Why is the misinformation pushing more migrants to go to the border?
Because they'll use any kind of big date. They'll use it as an excuse to, with this May 23rd, and then, last month it was something else. The month before that was something else. There's always going to be some sort of date that they can manipulate and say, oh, there's going to be this change of policy. Implica que van a seguir expulsando las personas.
Do you think giving them the right information of what's happening at the border will make someone maybe rethink the trip and stay behind?
Absolutely. I mean, we've had many folks that have decided, for example, to stay in Mexico and to accept the refugee status here and to try to integrate into Mexico.
But for some, they say they have no choice but to continue. Jose Lopez says he feared for his life in Honduras, where gang members shot him and accused him of being a police informant.
Enséñanos lo que te pasó. Yo ando dos balazos.
He and his wife believe that would make their claim for asylum in the U.S. much easier.
¿Esto de la frontera abierta dónde lo viste?
Aquí lo vi por
dónde?
Por teléfono.
¿Pero en dónde?
En Facebook.
So he says he read a comment on Facebook saying that the border was open. And there's a lot of messages that are exchanged where people say, come to the border, it's open.
Moments later, we reveal to him Title 42 remains in place. His reaction turns to confusion, and he changes the topic.
Tom, for the migrants that are now in Mexico that have entered the country, the first legal step would be to request refugee status. To do that, they have to come to government offices like these, and that can take time. Now, after they become refugees, they still need a humanitarian visa to stay in Mexico legally and travel within the country. During that time, they can work in Mexico, they can go to a shelter, but a lot of them end up sleeping on the street because there isn't enough resources in Mexico for all of these migrants in the country. Now, for those migrants that have that permit and make their way to the U.S.-Mexico border, then they have to go to the border and under Title 42 request an exemption from U.S. border officials. And we know that those exemptions are practically impossible to obtain. So under the current immigration policies, both in Mexico and the U.S., the migrants have very, very few options. Tom?
All right, Guad Venegas on the border there with Guatemala and Mexico. Guad, thank you. Coming up, Captain's last wish. The brave sailor who rescued dozens of refugees after the fall of Saigon, and the one small favor he's now asking for in return. His inspiring story coming up. Welcome back. As we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we want to bring you a story of bravery and bonding that began on the perilous seas after the fall of Saigon. But it doesn't end there. Vicky Nguyen with this heroic tale.
Lisa Dam reuniting with the man she last saw when she was 19 years old. Then, as now, she credits him with saving her life.
You did it. Without you, we would not have been here.
You're here, that's the main thing. That's all we ask for. Yeah.
In 1978, Lisa and 50 other Vietnamese refugees were fleeing communism after the fall of Saigon. But they got lost in the South China Sea, 33 adults and 18 children, adrift on this fishing boat, low on fuel and hope.
How dire was the situation?
Many ships passed by and didn't rescue us.
But death would not be their destiny, thanks to a man who was chief mate on this container ship, George Peterson.
I'm the captain's right-hand man. He told me to go down on the boat, tell them they can have all the food and all the water, but we really can't take them up.
But George insisted on bringing them all on board, prepared to accept any consequences.
What made you think we can't just give them food and water? We need to rescue them.
Any human being can see that if somebody needs help, you give them help.
Armstrong, now an attorney for the city of Los Angeles, and his brother Van were 4 and 9 at the time.
But I do remember seeing for the first time huge men with blue eyes, big muscles, like literally carrying us, from the little boat up to the ship.
That decision that he made changed everything for us.
For years, George tried to find the 51 refugees. The breakthrough? A neighbor saw this photo and found one person on the list of names George kept. It was Minh Nguyen, the first refugee to reconnect with George back in 2018. Many of them, like Lon Trong, wanting to make him proud.
I became a social worker. I want to give back to the community to help other people like George has inspired me to do.
Now 88, George is still hoping to find the 23 people he has yet to reunite with.
That's your dad. Isn't that crazy?
Until then, gratitude.
You were the right person in the right place and the right time.
Thank you.
And unending love.
George!
Vicky Nguyen, NBC News, Palm Springs, California.
And if you want to watch more of this emotional reunion that's been decades in the making, go to NBCnews.com/nightlyfilms. When we come back, the elevator delivery, the new mom giving birth to her baby with the help of a hospital security guard, what the two told us about the Mother's Day surprise. Stay with us. Finally tonight, the unforgettable Mother's Day delivery. And we know we're a little late on the calendar for this, but we just got some incredible video we had to share. A Texas mother welcoming her 4th child into the world, but not with the help she was expecting.
On Mother's Day this year, Medical City Dallas security guard Eli Davila was ready to put in the extra work.
When I was driving to work on Mother's Day, I'm like, well, I can work the whole shift and maybe even more.
Eli lost his mom a few years ago, so he figured this would be a day where he could cover for some of his co-workers. That's when mom of 3, Betsabeth Perez, and her partner arrived at his entrance. Her 4th child was on the way.
The pain was already getting intense. It was just so painful now that I was just like, okay, I just want to get there.
You can see from this security cam video the family car pulling into the entrance of the hospital.
Well, I'm going to direct you to labor and delivery. And she's like, no, you don't understand, like right now. So it's like, I said, oh, shoot. So I get up really quick and I grabbed a wheelchair and I rushed outside. And
this other security cam shows Eli and Betsabeth hustling to the elevator bank, racing to get to labor and delivery on the 9th floor.
I start to push her in the elevator and I looked down and I saw that the baby was crying and it was ready to come out.
Security guard Eli using a bit of his own experience as a father to help deliver the baby right there next to the elevators.
So the first thing you think is like the umbilical cord, move it away from the neck, make sure. So the baby starts crying. So I knew everything was fine.
Minutes later, watch this video. Mom and baby Mia are wheeled out of the elevator on that 9th floor and into the care of the hospital's real labor and delivery team. Just think about that. In fact, let's watch it again. Going into the elevator, no baby. Coming out of the elevator, baby. Mom so thankful for the security guard that truly stepped up.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for actually caring.
She's so sweet. Wow. I'm very happy that I'm part of Mia's life now and hopefully for a long time.
And Eli now has a new reason to celebrate Mother's Day.
But the fact that this happened on Mother's Day, now I got something to look forward to. It's her birthday, her Mother's Day, and I'm really glad that, I mean, just brought in a whole different meaning to Mother's Day again. And I'm really happy for that because I never thought I would get that again.
Congratulations to that beautiful growing family, and we hope Eli finally gets a day off after all that hard work. Thanks so much for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.